10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10 steps further along your spiritual journey. If you've been on your journey for 30 years or 30 minutes, if you believe in God, or even if you're not sure He exists, all we're trying to do is help you get 10 steps further. I'm Jonathan, and this is Jack, and we're just taking a walk. Why don't you join us? Welcome back to 10 Steps Further. Chad is with us.
Hey. I never know what to do right there, and it always comes out of like it's some sort of like hey, and I don't like it.
We did pray right before the podcast started, and I'm pretty sure I had my eyes closed for most of it. I'm pretty sure I heard Chad have a big yawn. But we also have it on video, so we'll see if that makes it onto the end credit scene.
There we go. It could be. We'll see. I'm tired. I feel pretty good.
Yeah,
I feel pretty good. I always get energy.
This is a Tuesday afternoon podcast, which are usually not
after
our highest energy episodes.
Well, because we just had like 4 hours of meetings.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So turn it off now is what I'm saying. Turn it off now.
Way to low sell the podcast.
No, but we were talking about before, and what was I going to say? See, I'm already lost it. No, we were talking about before, and Jack won't choose the topic, but just the conversation we were having before, do you guys ever feel like sometimes we should just like hit record? We have so much to talk about, and I think this topic is no different. And so if you're listening right now, I think this is a topic that is really practical and super applicable like today.
Yeah.
Well, certainly what we talked about beforehand was practical.
Yeah. We'll see how this goes, though.
Though, we have no idea. Okay, so topic today is about confidence, and there's all kinds of avenues that you could take this because confidence can be a great thing depending on where you put your confidence. Confidence can lead to cockiness. Right. Probably some of the people that you hate the most consider themselves confident, and you would consider themselves,
arrogant.
I never want to hang out with that guy.
Right.
So, all right. So I'm going to start with this. I found some quotes on confidence. I just want to get your thoughts on
Many
this.
athletes, I imagine.
You know what? I don't have a single athlete, and I
don't you have
thought
a Muhammad
about
Ali
that.
on there?
I do
You
have
gotta
one.
have a
You're
Muhammad Ali.
You're right.
Come on, he's an athlete.
Okay. Mark Twain. I don't think there was even sports when he wrote.
Okay.
So,
a
man cannot be comfortable without his own approval.
Okay.
All right.
It's Mark Twain, right? So it's probably it's irrefutable.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's Mark
How would
Twain.
Jesus say that? Something about loving yourself? I don't know.
Yeah, I would think that it is important that you develop a sense of being okay with who you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's so much what everybody else thinks about me. I think that we could all agree that's an unhealthy spot.
Yeah.
If what I feel about myself has to do with everybody else around me.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Here's Muhammad Ali. Do you have something to add to that, Jonathan?
No, I was just thinking it's a whole lot easier to like yourself when everybody else likes you. that was my thought.
That's what I've found.
Like, I mean, if everybody hates you, you're probably like, I'm probably a pretty miserable person.
Yeah, that's probably true. Or you don't care. All right, Muhammad Ali.
All right.
To be a great champion, you must believe you are the best. If you're not, pretend you are.
I like it.
Yeah.
Right?
I believe that, man.
So you're a big basketball guy, Jonathan, right?
Yeah,
so how does that confidence...
Well, I mean, you do see, most of the greats like carry themselves like they're the best, right? I mean, most of the ones who are the best, whether it's LeBron or Kobe or Jordan or all the guys on the top list, those guys will argue for themselves. Like if you ask that crowd, who's the best ever, they will all put themselves at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
Right. I just have the hardest time with that, right? Like what I want is you to be the greatest,
right?
And then for you to applaud all your teammates in the post-game interview.
Yeah, I like that. So LeBron does that. He tells you he's the greatest, and then he tells you he's got a bunch of great teammates.
Right.
What are you saying, Chad?
Well, I like that if you're not, pretend you are. And so my illustration is I play pickleball a lot. It's not nearly as like cool.
But you're the best.
Well, I could see world champion heavyweight fighter of all time, Chad's playing pickleball.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like Muhammad Ali said this, so obviously pickleball is not as cool as boxing or basketball.
Or anything.
No, it's super fun. But it can get really competitive. And, you play to 11, but you only score if you have the ball, so you can come back at any moment.
Like ping pong, right?
Yeah, like ping pong.
Yeah.
And so even when I'm down 10-0, I'll look at my partner. I want them to have the same confidence I do, and I'll say, listen, I believe we can beat anybody at any time, and we can come back at any moment. And I've come back from 10-0 before. You can totally do it if you pretend that you are the best.
If you pretend.
Someday, people will be quoting Chad.
Exactly.
The great
you gotta believe.
Great pickleball
Player. You got to believe you can beat anybody at any moment.
I like this one a lot.
All right.
Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
I do like that. Yeah. She has a few quotable
she's
smart.
Out there. She's smart.
Yeah. Didn't she have a song about her?
Franklin married up, for sure. 100%.
Good old Frank.
Okay. Confidence comes not from always being right, but from not fearing to be wrong.
Let me read that
Who's that one?
That is Patrick T. McIntyre. I don't know who that is.
Okay.
Famous pickleball player.
As far as I know, he was a mass murderer.
Yeah.
So not fearing being wrong. So it's
the ability to just, kind of go for it.
Right.
Yeah, you don't.
No, I like that.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, here's another one. Confidence is not, they will like me. Confidence is, I'll be fine if they don't.
Yep.
I resonate with that one more than Peter's.
I did read that. That's Christina Grimmie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Who is that?
She was a YouTube singer that was killed.
Oh.
Actually, backstory.
By Peter McIntyre.
No, she was killed at a performance by a crazed fan.
That is gnarly.
Yeah, she was a YouTube star that was she was on The Voice and she killed it on The Voice, but
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did not know who that is.
I mean, look her up. She's amazing, but and I think I'm pretty sure she was a Christian. She did a lot of covers and stuff, but interesting, right? Like a statement like that of confidence to go out there and do her thing, and then somebody didn't like her.
Somebody didn't like her
to a high level.
Well, the reality is, the higher you raise, the more the more successful you are, the more there will be people that disagree with you and don't like you and vote against you.
Yeah.
Right. So if your confidence is based on what everybody else thinks,
you're not going to try anything new ever.
Right.
Or you're not going to take any risks.
Right.
But she's saying, no, like, I'm going to be fine. Even if they don't, I'm going to still be confident in what I've been called to do.
And I will just say that is a lifetime. I'm 58. It's a lifetime battle that I am still wrestling my way through.
Yeah.
Is trying to be okay, even though not everybody else around you thinks that you're okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you kind of wonder, like, when you have the LeBron James type people out there who will, like, they'll be the first to say that they're great. I was in a book, audio. Yeah, I think audiobook I was listening to just recently.
Yeah, it had to be audio.
It wasn't words on a page.
Couldn't
for
have
sure.
been words on a page.
But it was this guy got invited to Kanye's house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in Kanye's living room, there is a giant picture of Kanye.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. That's so funny.
And he asked him. He said, "Why do you have a giant picture of yourself in the living room?" And he said, "So I can be the first to cheer for me."
Right.
And there's this somewhat weird and healthy thing about this, like, what do you do when you have everybody's criticizing you? Like LeBron had this Zlatan, is that his name, the soccer guy?
Oh, Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Just recently made a statement he says LeBron needs to stop talking about politics and just play basketball.
Yeah, basically stay in your lane.
Yeah, and I fully disagree. Like I'm like, no, man, you got a platform, you got a passion, you got something, and the people who are talking about it aren't smarter than you.
Right.
And so, but how do you do that in the face? Like, I don't necessarily agree with all his politics, but how do you do it when you have that much opposition and you're in that kind of a place? Yeah, and I think part of that is being one who says, like, you look in the mirror and you cheer for yourself. Right. When nobody else does.
So I think I've said this on the podcast. I know you guys know this. My golfing partner now is Ken Blanchard.
I was about to say tell him what Ken does.
Yeah, he's the author of the 1 Minute Manager. He's in Amazon's top 25 authors of all time.
Right.
But what he's known most for
is he play pickleball.
He doesn't play pickleball. He's Jack Hawkins' friend. That's what he's known for. But when you watch him golf, like Ken, he's 80. Right? And so he kind of limps up there. He's hurt his leg somehow, and so he's not super mobile. If it's 130 yards or more, he's going driver.
Okay.
Right? And I give him all kinds of crap about going driver. But you'll watch him, and he'll step up, and he'll clap his hands, and then he'll pat himself on the back,
Right.
and then he'll hit the ball. And it's because Tony Robbins told him, if you don't cheer for you, nobody will.
Wow.
And so that's what Ken does.
That's awesome.
So there's certain you can see the tension that we live in with this idea of confidence because there's a razor's edge. And we think of LeBron like LeBron standing up and saying he's the greatest ever.
Right.
He's pretty close.
Yeah. Top three, for
he's
sure.
top three for sure. But part of that, too, is based on the background that he comes from. Like, I think that he had a very difficult family background.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, I think he's still trying to prove.
Right.
Like, he doesn't need to prove himself to anybody. The guy is amazing and has made a huge impact on the world.
Right.
He doesn't need to do that, but still.
And that's the thing is, like, do we get irritated by people's confidence, or do we get irritated because people are genuinely better than us? Like that could be, because like I've actually heard it said that the closer the gap between who you really are and who you think you are is actually health. Like if you think you're awesome and you're not awesome, that's unhealthy. If you think you're not awesome and you are awesome, that's also not unhealthy.
Right.
Like the closer you are, well, if you're LeBron James, man, everybody thinks you're awesome, man, because you pretty much are. Like, so there is the other side of it of people just hate you because they can't compete. Right. And they can't measure up. And I don't know that we can live in that. That's kind of their issue.
Right.
Where we got to live is kind of being right with who we really are.
But let me ask you guys this.
Why does every podcast lead to you defending LeBron and you attacking LeBron?
I didn't attack LeBron. I was actually really
Jack hates LeBron. Jonathan always defends
well,
him.
That's true. But I was actually pretty nice to LeBron in this space.
You were. You
were. Right. But the reality is, I'm not cheering for him. So, but okay, let's talk about this for a second.
Right.
Where are you at in that confidence space in your life? Where is the place that you contend to go to unhealth?
When I'm like not confident, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like well, in a not a healthy space of confidence. Like I lean on this for my confidence when maybe I shouldn't. Where is that spot? Are you self-aware enough to know where that spot is? I mean, I could share if you want.
You start.
Okay. So here's basically my history. I'm sure most of you guys know my history, but I started out, the first church I was at was like 5,000-6,000 people, and I was one of the youth pastors of this church. And you don't think that you go to this spot in your head, but part of you goes, you know what? I'm something, right? I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
So then the next couple of churches I went to weren't quite as big, and I struggled with my own feelings of being valuable. Then I went to a camp that's in the top 3% of camps, and I was very happy to tell people that it's in the top 3% of camps. And that's what I did for a living. And then I thought when we planted the church that there would be lots of people who had heard me at Forest Home and were just clamoring to come in here. Right. And like nobody did.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, there was one guy, Bill Davis, and I'm so grateful for him because he actually was on the board at Forest Home and he helped us start the church. He was my first board chair and just a fantastic human. But that was like it. And so I realized that for me, however many people showed up or however we did budget-wise or whether or not we were in a building, which we've never been in, that would all make a difference on whether or not I had confidence or how I felt about me. I think that was a place of unhealth for me.
I see what you're asking then. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say mine was seminary. You know, I was never the smartest in the room. I don't think I was ever the dumbest. But I think no matter what, you were always in a room where there was several people.
That's true of this room, too.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to come out with the official rankings soon.
So good. That was a really well-timed joke. Yeah. Okay, back to sharing my heart with you guys. In a room, in a seminary, it's just there's always someone smarter. And it's very nerve-wracking when they start talking about theology, and especially if there's a topic that you've never really investigated and you're called on or you're asked to speak. And so I think that's where I always felt maybe like the least confidence.
Okay.
In that academic environment.
I think for me, it's I'm trying to think of how to put this. Like, I feel like there's, I feel like I'm most confident when I'm a bulldozer.
Okay.
Like when I
We're talking about least confident.
Yeah, and so I feel like I'm least confident when I'm not a bulldozer.
Oh God!
Like I feel like, I kind of feel like my voice is worthless.
Okay.
In the background.
Okay.
You know, like is it kind of a weird, like I feel like I'm just like, there's just a point where you just stop passing the ball, and that's where I feel like I don't feel like everybody's that way. I don't feel like everybody is at their best when they just, you know, grab the machete and start marching through the jungle.
Yeah.
But I feel like I am. so I feel like it's exponentially stronger in those places where it's like, okay, it's on the line, I'll get it done. I'll get there early.
On a scale of vulnerability, I feel like yours was around a 9. Mine was a 7.
Easy.
Jonathan's like a 3.
Yeah.
Like a real,
right,
like a real story. Like, no, I mean, I just like.
Well, first I want to ask you, how much did your confidence drop when
Right.
Chad yawned right in the middle of what you were
Of your
saying?
story?
I didn't even
Again,
notice it.
view this on YouTube and you'll see that.
Didn't even notice it. No, I mean, I think that there are times where it's like, and usually it comes where everything else isn't working. That's usually where I'll kind of step up and just like, but it's a decision. It's like an exhale, take over type mentality. Otherwise, it's just like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do?
Yeah,
it feels like we don't go anywhere and there's not a lot of power in it. And if I was in a fight, I would lose that fight.
Yeah.
Like, and so it's, I don't know what that means or what that looks like. But for me, it's like, I just feel like there's a point where you just go for it, and that's where the strength is at. And if you're not just going for it, and you're just trying to fit in, like it just is. It feels very weak. And
can I give you one short one?
Sure. And
Where I was least confident, prison riots.
Yeah.
Seriously. Okay, wait a second. We have to talk
Prison
about this.
riots, dude.
Okay, tell me what's a prison riot look like?
I experienced 2. It's
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot like
prisons
pickleball.
are very racial, and so the whites hang out the whites. The whites can hang out with
Segregated.
Yeah, it's very segregated on races, and so whites and Hispanics can hang out together, and then norteños, which is Hispanics of Northern California, and brothers and others would hang out together. So you have the blacks, Asians, and norteños hanging out together. But then those are called cars, and if I say something wrong to, let's say, like someone from the other car, so if I was to say something wrong to like a norteño, and he like punches me, that is not allowed to happen. So the brothers, others, which is Asian people, blacks, that whole car, it's a
Right.
family, right? If they cross the boundary and they get in a fight with someone from my car, a South Sider, Southern California Hispanic, or a white, then that is so. If you were the Hispanic, Jonathan, from the Northern California, and I was the white, and you punch me, then it's everybody's fighting, and it's called popping off because of that. That line was broken.
Okay, so that happens right in the middle of. Where are you? I'm picturing you under a table.
No, I'm very close to under table. So typically, what you're doing is you're fighting someone near you, because if you get caught not fighting, then you're gonna get really beat up after. So you got to fight. But I was always fighting near, like, you have like all your food and stuff. I would run over to my bunk and I'd fight near my bunk because I didn't want people stealing my food.
Oh,
and so I was fighting, but I was never confident. I never won a fight in a riot.
Right. That just sounds like a terrible situation.
But they don't last long. They don't last long.
Yeah.
You're talking 1 minute of raw fighting, and then cops are in there, and it's hectic.
I just feel like I would probably, I don't know, man. I'd probably learn my lesson and learn to keep my mouth shut. But I would just be like, guys, this isn't intelligent behavior. I just want to talk.
And in your mind, you're thinking this will work in prison.
Right. Like, but that's the thing is, you're just like, wait, why are we doing this? I get it, right? It's prison rules, but it's just like, my brother was in the Army infantry, and he said in basic training they come in and they'll come in. There's a group of them, and they'll single somebody out, and they'll like, he did something wrong, so the drill sergeant will get all on him, and then he'll leave, and then everybody else will beat him up, and they'll get on him, and my brother's like, it's not the smartest guys that go into the infantry, man. He's like, these guys, like, it's a game. It's not
the
like
smartest methodology.
It's not like the drill sergeant's going to come into the room and be like, you guys are doing great. His job is to tear somebody up.
I feel like there's the possibility that there are some people in the infantry that want to beat Jonathan up right now.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'm going to move us on.
It's
All
my
right.
brother said
so,
it.
Would you agree with these? I know, that was awesome, though. I appreciate that. Prison story.
Riots.
Prison riot. Wow. It's not my reality. you would agree with these statements. We talked about it before. We are more productive when we're confident.
Yeah.
We laugh easier when we're confident.
Yeah.
We're able to express ourselves better when we're confident. We connect better with others when we're confident. But there is this fine line between confidence and arrogance. And there's also this sense of, like, confidence is good, but confidence is very easily misplaced. We place it in the wrong things. There's some verses I want to read to you because Paul talks about this. And I kind of sense that Paul was a really confident human.
Yeah, maybe.
He had some moments of confidence.
Yeah, for sure.
My favorite quotes about Paul is when he's talking about other people who are speakers too. And you can always see he's leaking all kinds of confidence because he goes, some people like Apollos and some people like these guys, right? He's always saying things like, well, when I speak, not everybody likes it.
Yeah.
Philippians 3 says this: my brothers and sisters, rejoice in the Lord. It is no trouble for me to write the same things to you. It's a safeguard to you. And then he says this. It's a weird statement. Watch out for those dogs, those evildoers, those mutilators of the flesh. For as we who are the circumcision, who serve God by His Spirit, who boast in Christ Jesus, who put no confidence in the flesh. Okay, one of you two, give me the background. Who is he talking to? Who are the mutilators of the flesh? The dogs.
Yeah.
And these are not Scripture ranch dogs. These are like dogs in Haiti. All right? These are like bad dogs.
Yeah,
Go for it, Johnny.
the religious system, the religious leaders, and they were, and really, I think really his passion behind that is just some of the most irritating people in the world is like religious overconfidence or religious arrogance,
right?
And like some terrible things have been done in the name of God. In just this religious, I'm better than you, and you need to measure up, and you need to be more like me. Really, is what they're saying,
right? And specifically in this spot, these people had decided, I'm not going to be just Jewish anymore. I'm going to follow Jesus, right? Or these people that had nothing to do with Judaism,
right?
They're going to follow Jesus, and so what did they want the new guys to do when they came in?
Yeah, so in Judaism, it was you're circumcised
right
on the 8th day of birth, so you have no memory of it,
right?
But for these guys, like, yeah, you're 32, whatever, man. You want to follow God, you got to be circumcised, and
that's a hard sell.
They did not have anesthesia.
They had some trouble with that theology.
Brown liquor, maybe. That's like the best that you could do.
Jeez. Yeah. So Paul labeled them as mutilators because they literally wanted to mutilate people.
What was your story about the shower?
Well, no, in Galatians, it's just an interesting and wacky verse to think about because he's talking about the same people in Galatians, and he says they spy out our liberty. And he's speaking of circumcision. They're hiding in the shower. Like, these guys are creeping on them.
They're at the lake when they get out.
And they're like, wait, guys, I saw, and they're not circumcised. Like, it's just kind of the wild.
That is crazy.
And that's one step backwards.
Yeah.
That we just took.
So
it's
this
there,
line,
man. It's there.
Right?
Awesome.
Put no confidence in the flesh.
Okay.
I mean, this is clearly something that we do. Some of our confidence is based in our flesh, in our bodies, right?
Most of it.
Right? And so, I mean, there's all kind of, well, certainly here in San Diego, I made a list. Here's what we do to put confidence in the flesh: workout, spin class, road biking, mountain biking, Pilates, yoga, Bikram yoga, which is hot yoga, marathons, half marathons, sprint tries. You notice on my list
isn't pickleball?
Pickleball is nowhere on that list.
No, because you wrote this years ago. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America now.
We have a guy at our church, Paul Klingenberg, who ran, he did an Ironman.
Okay.
And you know what an Ironman is, right?
Yep.
Hard. A 2.4 mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and then a marathon.
Yeah.
And he was over 200 pounds. You know what they call that division? Clydesdales.
Oh, man.
He was in the Clydesdale division.
Wow.
We had a woman at our church who swam the English Channel.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
Yep.
Here's the crazy thing. What you have to do to swim the English Channel is you intentionally have to gain weight. So that you have enough fat to keep you warm.
So you're saying I have a shot?
Yeah, right. So you're
not a good swimmer, but I can float.
You grease yourself up, and then you go for it.
No way.
Dang.
That's crazy.
Right? I mean, but clearly here in San Diego, confidence in the flesh or lacking confidence in your flesh, 100%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. California, right?
Right. But how does that translate into like your spiritual life?
I think that's where it's really at, right? I mean, it's man, we measure ourselves in this. Like if you are trying to be a Christian, and it's a problem with people who grew up in church or have spent a lot of time in churches, because it becomes real subtle where we begin to judge everybody else based on ourselves, and we judge ourselves based on the appearance of everybody else. So there's this like fake standard that everybody's trying to measure up to, and if you think that you're actually doing it, you judge everybody else, and that's like, and the whole thing is the fact that it's like God's looking down from heaven at your church trying to figure out which person is watching the most wholesome TV shows, that's the goal. That the confidence is in the fact that I went to church more times than somebody else, gave more money than somebody else,
read more verses.
Yeah, it's just this constant.
Journaled more.
We
Is
do
there
it all.
anything more annoying than somebody who journals all the time?
It's like the CrossFit person, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You know that they go to CrossFit.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I feel like it's really easy to get there because we all have. I mean, when you think about, I heard an analogy, and it was a LeBron James analogy, believe it or not.
Shocking.
But I heard, and he said, listen, LeBron James can jump a lot higher than I can, but when the distance we're trying to jump to is the moon, he doesn't jump that much higher than I do.
Right.
And that's the reality. Like, we're comparing ourselves on a very wimpy scale. And when you put that in front of the standard of God, we all aren't close to the moon.
Right. like this woman swam the English Channel.
Yeah.
She's not swimming to Hawaii.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Whatever good you do, you can't do good enough to prove yourself that you're okay.
Right.
Right?
That you're not going to earn God.
You can't find the ultimate confidence in your body because your body is going to wear down.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it gets harder as you get older, and all of a sudden sleep is more dangerous than it used to be.
Sleep is more dangerous?
Yeah, I woke up, my neck was all tweaked this morning from sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the worst when you get to the point in your life where the thing that did the most damage to you was your pillow.
Right.
Yeah. You can hurt yourself being next to your pillow. So I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to work on your own flesh.
No.
Right?
No.
Bible says, don't you know that the bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit? Mm-hmm. You're not your own. You're bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. Mm-hmm. That's okay.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But I don't think that's where you put your confidence.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, definitely not your confidence before God.
Yeah.
Like, it's absurd that we would come to church and just be like, in our prayer time, like, God, did you see my biceps today? Really, I got a good pump before church. Like, that would just be silly.
Yeah.
Right.
But we do that based on our prior work of how spiritual we were. Like, we have this, like, oh, I'm really living, better than I used to be. And so there's this kind of confidence before God. I think we should never have a confidence before God that doesn't come from anything other than the fact that He forgave us and invited us to come. And if we ever come based on, well, I've done some real spiritual stuff this year, He's not going to hear us.
Yeah, I always think of it like this. Like, if He wants to keep me out because I'm sinful, He's well within His rights.
Right.
Right? Right? Because I used to think that, like, okay, this is another true confession of a pastor. So, like, we're 22 years and we're not in a building.
Right.
And I always think, what did I do wrong? Like
Right.
Moses screwed up and couldn't go into the promised land. Like, did I do something really bad to do that? And if God wants to find something about me that isn't good enough to keep me out, He can absolutely do it all day.
But when you
day.
land there, then you look at the other guy and you're like, well, what did he do right? He's worse than I am.
Yeah, right.
And he got the building.
Right. Yeah. And then you have to get to that place where you realize it's not all about all of those accomplishments.
Right.
Right. Okay, I want to move us on to the next point, but I want to tell a story. Can I tell a quick story about
please.
confidence in the flesh?
Yeah.
So I ended up flat on my face in a doctor's office, and it was all Chad's fault. Did you know that?
Not yet.
I don't think I knew this. I want to hear the story.
So
it's not what we think. I'm pretty
for
sure.
years, Chad has run a program. He doesn't do it anymore, but it's still being run. It's called City Search, and it happens on Halloween. Okay. And so he sends kids to my house.
They do like a scavenger hunt around the city.
Yeah, it's like a scavenger hunt.
Jack's house is one of the spots.
Always. And so what happens is all these kids show up and they'll just say, they like get extra points for being creative.
Okay.
Well, Pastor Jack, can you dab with us? Or, Pastor, can you dance with us?
Okay.
Well, I have this group of kids show up the first time, and it's a bunch of junior high boys. Okay. And they go, let's all take our shirts off. Do you remember this, Quinn?
No, so it was Logan Miller, Mikey McGibney.
Okay,
right. Those kids, I think.
So I take my shirt off. Uh-huh. And what I don't know is that they're showing these pictures at junior high group later that night. And I get a text from one of the leaders saying, you look like one of the junior high boys with your shirt off. So I go, well, that can't happen. So I started to work out a bunch.
Okay.
So then later, a couple weeks later, I'm going to a football game with my son Riley. And on the way home, my shoulder is just starting to scream out in pain, and I can't even lift it above my head. So I get home, I go, I got to go to the doctor because I have to speak the next day.
Right.
Here's a really smart thing I did. I found some pain meds that I had before.
Yeah, just try them out, man.
Just try them out, right? That should help. So I get the pain meds, I go to the doctor, and I'm standing. They're going to take the x-ray of my shoulder, and I go down like a sack of potatoes.
Oh. What do you mean? Like you passed out?
100%. Flat on the ground. Pain meds. I was in the sun all day. I was dehydrated.
So
all because I was trying to get my pump on.
Because of me.
because of
your house.
Yes. 100%.
Man. That's great.
Yeah, isn't that great? So clearly not a good place for me to put confidence in the flesh. And I have been working out since then.
Yeah.
And seriously, I think of that when we do City Search.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah.
You're ready.
I'm ready.
2 months before City Search, Jack's hitting it hard.
Absolutely ready.
Got to get ready for next
ready.
year's City Search.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. Do you put your confidence in your accomplishments?
Yeah.
The measurables of your life. This is what Paul says. Right after that, he says, if someone thinks they have reason to put confidence in the flesh, I've got more. Circumcised on the 8th day of the people of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, in regard to the law, a Pharisee. As for zeal, persecuting the church. As for righteousness, based on the law, faultless. This is his resume.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I got it down.
Right. Yeah, born better than you.
We find so much
born better than you.
A part of it is like not only our confidence and identity are so closely linked. I feel like because we put so much of our identity and confidence into our work. Mm-hmm. We find so much value in our work, and there's a certain amount of that's healthy. We're created to do good work and to help see our city flourish through our work. But then there's also a part of it where our work can't rule our total being. My whole life is not just Canyon Springs Church. I got kids that I'm
not.
No. And if it is, then that's where the problem comes in. My whole life can't just be Canyon Springs Church. I have 2 daughters that I'm raising. I have a wife that I'm being a husband to. And so there comes that place where we have to check ourselves where we are so called to our church, so called to our people. Mm-hmm. And I'm sacrificing my life for the church. I'm serving the church. But at the same time, it's got to be like that healthy balance of also, I got to be able to turn off when I go home. I can't be answering every email at home by an angry person. I've got to be there for my family and present still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think though that success builds confidence, though.
Certainly.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
What's interesting about Paul giving that resume is he kind of disowned it. Like it was as if he changed careers in a sense, and he's like, I went in a direction that was the opposite of what my previous confidence was in.
Right.
Where I put my confidence previously, I now put it in a new place. And I think he still had a confidence in his calling and his work, and a drive. But I think like success, if you do something and you fail, your first response is, I don't ever want to do that again. If you do it and you succeed, you'll be like, I can't wait to do it again.
Right.
And so there is something to just in a natural sense that successes and past successes do build our confidence.
I would agree with you 100% in theory, but here's the deal. Like, one of my favorite quotes is, I would rather fail at something that will ultimately succeed than succeed at something that will ultimately fail. There are people who are succeeding in a lot of things that really have no eternal value.
Right.
And so their confidence is sky high, but what they place their confidence in. Let me give you an example, all right? So when I was at Forest Home, I got to do a lot of speaking, and I found it built my confidence because I was on the speaking team, and I just about every conference I got to speak at.
Okay.
All right. So fast forward, plant a church. Nobody from Forest Home comes. It's meaningless. I go back to Forest Home because my daughter is the worship leader at the junior high camp, and it was amazing to watch her lead. It was awesome. Sterling's so great. Such a fun person. Just love her so much. But as I walked around Forest Home, none of my memories were of, hey, I used to speak there.
Right.
Or, hey, I used to lead there. Or look at all these great, none of them were like that. They were all, man, there's the creek that me and Riley used to float boats on. Mm-hmm. And there's a house that during winter camp, all my family would come back to, right? At the end, it wasn't about the accomplishments that I did. It was about those relationships that really mattered. It was about the legacy stuff.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay, so he follows it up. Like he says, I don't have confidence in this. And then he says this, for whatever gains to me, I now consider loss for the sake of Christ. What is more, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage that I may gain Christ. Mm-hmm. Do you know what the word garbage here means?
I don't want to edit this podcast, so we
Careful.
So we can't say it.
If there were bumper stickers back then that you put on the back of camels, it would say "garbage happens."
Right.
Right.
Nice.
Up Garbage Creek without a paddle.
Right.
That's what Paul's saying. That's the value of all of his own accomplishments.
Right.
So you're right. I do think he had confidence in what his newest job was, but I don't think he put confidence in those either.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, his confidence is in his calling, and his confidence is in a God that can do anything.
Right.
It really is a shift. It's the same belief with a new cause, I guess. Instead of it's just being like, oh, I'm it. It's because he didn't lack it anymore. He's like, I'm not sure this is going to work.
Right.
Which I think is where confidence goes. Or lack of confidence would be that question of like, is this going to work? He didn't lack that. He had just as much as he ever had. It was just now, it was like, oh, this wasn't because I was born into the right home and I did the right things. This is because the God who called me gave me this ability.
Yeah.
So it's the same.
Right.
It seemed like he had the same belief. He just gave credit to a different person.
Here's the next line, and this is where our confidence needs to land. Okay.
Okay.
Verse 10, he says this. I want to know Christ.
Right.
Yes, to know the power of his resurrection, our participation in his suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't confidence in I'm good enough, I'm better than that guy, I have a better resume than that person.
Right.
It's all in one person, and that is God's ability to work through me, not me. Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts, Chad? By the way, if you are hearing, do you think they'll be able to hear any of this clicking in the podcast?
No, but they would hear you calling Quinn out and saying, "Who's Quinn?"
Oh yeah, they're probably like, wait, our producer Quinn.
Quinn is here. He's taking lots of pictures of us.
You see him on the video if you're watching on YouTube. You're like, "Who is this guy in the
actually
room?"
stealing my confidence. Like when you're 58, you don't want pictures taken of yourself anymore.
There was a time.
There was tonight. Did I tell that story?
Was that on the podcast?
It wasn't
or before
on the podcast. I'll tell that story. So we're going online in this last season, and then we do this video of me speaking, and I get this text message from my buddy Stu. He says, I'm watching you with my kid. And my kid says this to me. He says, you know what, that Pastor Jack, I could see at one point he was probably a pretty good-looking guy.
Oh, wow. That's so good. So good. No, I think I love how he starts verse 10. I want to know Christ, and I like that they even put a dash after that. It kind of makes its like own little statement right there. And he says like, yeah, I want to know the power of his resurrection and participation in his suffering, becoming like him in death, and so somehow attaining to the resurrection from the dead. Not that I have already obtained all this, or have already arrived at my goal, but I press on to take hold of that which Christ Jesus took hold of me. So I resonate with him because I think there's a lot of things I put before God as far as my confidence goes. I think accomplishments, I can easily put that before God sometimes. And so it's just a good kind of bringing back to a cross moment where I've got to remember, like, any accomplishments I have, it's not because Chad's so great. It's because God's so great. And so I think that's a continual humbling moment that we will always have in our life. I think the drive that I have, it always makes me want to puff up a little, and then when I read scripture like this, it makes me go, no. This is God working through you, all right? Let's remember that. That's where we start.
Right. Yeah, I've told the story before of the speaking opportunity I got at my church, and I was the worship leader, so I brought in another worship leader, and he was from the big church. Oh. And of all the people in the room that I was nervous about, it was him, because this guy sits under great teaching every week, and after the message, he's carrying his guitar out, and he said, "Hey, man, God spoke to me." And I said, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah,
and he said, "Don't take credit for it." Never forgot Darren Hildebrand.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great. So I think for me, this is where I've landed. All right. So I get done. I'm at this camp. I get to speak at all these places. And so then you end up planning a church, and you always have this dream that you're going to get into a building and all these people are going to come, whatever. And God had different plans for me. He wanted me to know people, to walk in relationship with people. And my goal would always be to have been, famous and write books and whatever. Because you feel like if you do that, then you've got value. Like my confidence, I was trying to build confidence so that I could say to other people, see,
right,
I made it. And so I used to there would be times when I would be in the room and there wasn't as many people as I wanted. And I would say to myself, well, I could really speak at a bigger place than this. Mm-hmm. And I'm not there at all in my walk with God now. Right. What my thought is, I could, but the only way I could is if God made me do it. And the only way I can do what I do now is if God uses me.
Right.
It really has almost nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
It's whether or not God wants to use me here or there or anywhere.
Right.
And so what's our challenge to these people who are listening right now as far as where they find their confidence?
I think it's just remembering the eternal things. Your spouse is eternal. Your kids are eternal. Your friends are eternal. And investing into those relationships. Not putting the confidence in your job. And I think that our job, we have a certain calling to it and mission with a lot of our work. But, man, the focus, that eternal focus with my spouse, with my kids, with my friendships, with my friends, I think there's a lot of value there.
Yeah, I would say also you're not good enough. And that's
Jonathan looked directly at me when you said that.
And when you land in that space, you're not good enough, but you were created with a purpose and a calling, and God put you where He's put you, and He is on one side. You are far less than you think you are, at least if you're like most people, but He is far more than you think He is. And so it should be, I think, a sense of diminishing confidence and at the same time explosion of confidence within us that, like, we serve a God that can do anything, who controls all of history, and I feel like it should cause us to walk in a confidence all the more, but not in ourselves.
Yeah, right.
And all of us are at a different place on the spectrum of what that looks like, but you cannot like, His potential is so far out of any of our reaches that if we pursue Him and ask Him to move and walk by faith, He will do more than we think He will do. Every single one of us, He'll do more than we think He'll do because He's capable of it.
And that takes the pressure off, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to prove myself to everybody else. Mm-hmm. I don't have to prove myself. I don't have to, get into that school or get that GPA or have that money or drive that car. I don't need any of that stuff. It's the fact that God is capable of using me.
Right.
I've also noticed that I'm kind of leaning into smallness these days. That my biggest impact is probably your biggest impact. It's not what I do on a stage. It's what I do one-on-one, walking from here to there, noticing people like that in my life.
Right.
And that's when God uses me the most.
Amen.
So good. All right. Thanks for listening. That's 45 minutes. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Thanks,
another
guys.
episode. Keep checking back. Thanks for joining us for these last 10 steps. If you'd like to join us for another journey, or if you know someone else who's on this walk, subscribe to our podcast at 10 Steps Further on iTunes, or simply search 10 Steps Further on your podcast app. And if you'd like to be part of the conversation with a question or a comment or a criticism or even a wisecrack, look us up on Facebook. We've created a Facebook group where you can be part of the conversation. We'll see you next time.